Once our small community has consolidated through study evenings and a school, we can take the next step. We repeat once more, our goal is: we want to establish in one place in the world, for example, in a multi-generational house in the city, on a farm, or in an entire village, a physical Agni Yoga community of men, women and children of several families who submit to the rule of the Mahatmas and become part of the Federation Temple of Humanity. This is a great, never realized project. It requires thorough preparation and extremely careful implementation in small steps if it is not to fail shortly. The experiences of Agni Yogis over the last few decades in various countries all over the world teach that time may not yet be ripe to form physical communities. Most of these projects were only short-lived. Why is that so? The majority of people is not yet fit for living in a community. They cannot or do not want to subordinate themselves selflessly. They are not yet ready to be ruled by the Mahatmas or their representatives, as in ancient Egypt. A yogi reveres hierarchy. He knows that there are many hierarchs above him, but ordinary man faces a difficult step in achieving an understanding of hierarchy. People do not like such a submission. They are self-opinionated and in their egoism abandon all thoughts of infinity. In refusing to learn to love the beauty of infinity, they cannot love hierarchy. We see again how the new construction advances along the personal channel. Before we can think of forming physical communities, we must first sift through and train the candidates to such an extent that they are suitable to become members. Therefore, the next step on our path is: we create communities in spirit. We must strive for the formation of collectives of the spirit. Or, in the terminology of the digital age, of virtual communities. These do not yet require living together physically, but prepare for that. What is a community in spirit? A true community arises independently of the external circumstances through the connection of related consciousnesses. Life can be transfigured under any and all conditions. A community of the spirit is the highest transfiguration of life. Many of the ignorant do not wish to understand that a community of the spirit does not depend upon external form. It is created there where the concept of the broadening of consciousness is alive. The only true unity, unity in spirit and in consciousness, becomes stronger and more powerfully realized. Brotherhood can be realized only in unity of the consciousnesses. The teacher works for this unity of consciousness with his closest disciples, but physical unity is not taken into consideration. We unite in the heart, wherever we live. The heart stands as the temple of humanity. One cannot conceive of the unification of humanity by means of the brain or the Kundalini, but the radiance of the heart can bring together the most seemingly diverse organisms, and that even over great distances. This experiment of bringing together hearts over long distances is waiting for workers to carry it out. Spiritual communities can form beyond the boundaries of matter, time and space, of countries, states and peoples. Spiritual cooperation will grow, unlimited by space. Community of the spirit is possible where there exists a living magnet. Then it is possible, across all earthly boundaries, to closely join each cooperative or community. When a community lives in the sole service of truth, there exist no obstacles. We need a very broad understanding of the concept of community in order to arrive at a spiritual world community. One should understand community not in the narrow sense, but in a very broad one, precisely as cooperation with all humanity, with all worlds, with all that exists. People suffer greatly from lack of a friendly attitude toward each other. Therefore, to lock them up in closed communities will only strengthen their alienation from the world community, which contains all humanity and all planes of beingness. How does a spiritual community form? We already quoted Wittgenstein, who aptly says, "Culture is the rule of a monastic order." A higher culture, the New World, arises through our living together according to new higher rules in an advanced order of society. We immortals get to a higher way of life, not because it is prescribed from above, but because it corresponds better than the old one to the eternity of our nature. One of the most important quotes of Agni Yoga is, "People are ready to suffer the discomfort of any night lodging for the sake of tomorrow's festival, but they are unwilling to lead an earthly life which is commensurate with infinity." What does that mean exactly? How do we get to such a new way of life? Let us give an example. Imagine the white settlers and trappers in the Wild West setting out to settle among the Indians in enemy territory. It will not be much different when a community of Agni Yogis comes together at the foot of the Altai mountains to found a village or even their own state, as Nicholas Roerich tried to do. How do they proceed? They must do physical labor on the outer plane, building houses and a church, temple or ashram as the center of the community, cultivating and tilling the land, and so on. Much more important for the formation and cohesion of the community, however, is the spiritual work that all have to do on the inner level. You have to determine the manners and customs according to which your community of the future wants to live. Especially today, it is essential for people to find agreement regarding how to live and make their way into the future. We certainly want to live differently than the old man in the old world. Just like the emigrants from Europe wanted to create a new world in America. If we want to build the world of the future together, we first have to agree on the new spiritual order that is to rule there. Which rules and laws shall apply? Who lays them down? Who monitors compliance? By what means? If necessary, by force? We need a rhythm of the day for common worship, training and service. How do we want to dress? Who runs the community and its institutions? Who appoints these leaders, and by what procedure? We have to fix and define all this among ourselves in such a way that everyone agrees, and that before we start our journey to the place in prospect and break the first sod there. It is a tremendous mental achievement and an enormous amount of work that will take many months to unite the various members with their different levels of consciousness under one common spiritual roof. This is how we form a spiritual community. We are committed to a common worldview, Agni Yoga. We follow the higher customs, traditions, rules and laws of the Brotherhood. We all practice the same spiritual exercises. We work together towards a common goal, the establishment of a stronghold of the new world. And we submit to a common leader, the Mahatmas of Shambhala. Whoever subscribes to these 5 principles belongs to us, wherever he lives. You will see a common philosophy, common customs, common exercises, a common goal and a common leadership weld us together more firmly and securely than living together physically in a certain place. Collaboration takes place on the plane of unified consciousness, and because such co-workers are approximately similar in their thinking, the unification forms a true community. Spiritual communion is indestructible, and distance has no meaning. These 5 foundations are the indispensable basis that we must firmly anchor before we unite to form a physical community. Now let us get more specific. What are these customs and laws on the basis of which we are to establish our spiritual community? The order that we give our spiritual community is determined by the 10 pillars of the practice of Agni Yoga. These are the customs that apply in the Brotherhood of Shambhala. And if we want our construction to follow this example, we too must adopt them. We had already talked about these 10 pillars in a series of its own. Watch it again, if necessary, and make sure that you have not forgotten anything. Today we must limit ourselves to a few words about what these principles mean for the establishment of a community of the future. The first pillar is a higher consciousness. The new man and the new world arise independently of the external circumstances in the consciousness and must be defended there. Therefore, a higher consciousness is indeed the indispensable basis of our new construction. We can also put it this way: if you want to enter a community of the future, you must have previously learned to maintain the fiery state of your being under all circumstances. The second pillar is the rhythm of the day. It allows us to give each of the 4 spheres of life: connection with the higher world or meditation, service to the common good, service to the neighbor, and self-perfection, the appropriate room. Many of you have mocked this pillar and said, "I do what I want, whenever I want, and I do not let myself be forced into a corset." I want to leave it open whether this attitude is promising for the individual. At least in a community, however, we cannot avoid deciding when we want to do what, if we want to do it together. We have to agree when to visit the temple, take our meals, do the necessary work, practice our exercises together, and so on. Third, there are the rules regarding nourishment based on spiritual principles. They are of the utmost importance. New eating habits form an essential part of the new world. In the temple of humanity there is, of course, no alcohol, no meat, no tobacco, no sweets, and no gluttony. You may be convinced, wherever people eat out of appetite and not because of necessity, the old world still prevails. On the 4th pillar, you do not particularly like the concept of obedience. Our broadcastings on this topic achieve but low viewing figures. However, this tenet is of fundamental importance for the establishment of the world state of the future. It is about the paramount principle of hierarchy, which we shall talk about in detail shortly. We realize the 5th pillar, living in 2 worlds, by vaulting the spiritual order of the Federation Temple of Humanity over the material place in which our community exists. Thus, we live in heaven already on earth. With us, the conditions of both levels apply. In the following, we are going to speak in detail about the sixth pillar, selflessness, the seventh pillar, connection with the higher world, meditation, the eighth pillar, service to the common good, and the 10th and last pillar, education or self-perfection. The 9th pillar, service to the neighbor, is realized naturally and as a matter of course in a living community in which all members help one another. You can find further rules for communities of the New Age in the Broadcasting the Hierarchy and in the series The New World. There are also a number of lesser customs. The people of the future will wear white clothes that do not emphasize the physical. They renounce the coarse handshake in favor of the Gandhi greeting. My immortal soul greets your immortal soul.